Welcome to another episode of A Journey in Boots from Trauma to Triumph. And I'm super excited about tonight's episode. But before we bring on the amazing chief, I just want to give a shout out to Unstoppable Overcomers Productions. We are a full service media agency here to serve the world, as well as I'm also a veteran and first responder ally. And that's how I met this amazing lady over there. Wherever she is. And so Miss Veteran over here, Miss Janelle Royster. So Janelle or Dr. Royster, share a little bit about yourself.
All good. I'm Dr. Royster. I am a licensed mental health counselor and a licensed professional counselor supervisor. I'm board certified in telemental health. I own a private practice and I am an Air Force veteran, and my practice is comprised of individuals who have served the country and the community, and that is the population we serve, the people who have served or are serving, and the people who serve the community as well are serving, which is how I met our guest. I would love for you to introduce him.
You want me to introduce him?
You got
hold on. Well, hold on here. I know he's blushing in the back, and I'm trying to get him up.
Oh, this guy is amazing. I am excited. I told so many people about him. Oops. I am looking forward to this episode.
My mouse was not working, so I do apologize. I tried to bring it up, and then I screw it up. So,
all good.
Behold, we have the amazing Chief Michael. Okay, how do you pronounce your last? There, thank you. Mm-hmm. He is a 31-year fire service veteran and is the fire chief of the Suffolk, Virginia Fire and Rescue and Services on the 911 Service Board. He's appointed by the governor, holy crap, back in 2023. He is a nationally registered paramedic and a neonatal, this is what I found really amazing, a neonatal pediatric critical care paramedic for the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughter.
So it's Suffolk, not Suffolk from Canada. I know you have that accent with your lovely vowels, and I love picking on you every episode about it because I love you.
For those of you that want her to quit picking on me, please write into the show and tell her to lay off.
But it's so cute. I love the accent.
We could go on because the chief here has so many accommodations and things here, but we want to know the true person because we can go list credentials all night long. But I know Dr. J has a lot in store for tonight's show. So with that, welcome to the show, Chief. Thank you so much for joining us. Amazing guy. Like I just met him in the green room for 10 minutes and already, we love him here on the show.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Dr. Royster. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Absolutely.
So, Chief, I want to start at the beginning a little bit. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, Air Force. My father was in the Air Force. So I was born in Richmond, Virginia, just about 100 miles up the road from here.
Awesome.
And spent time in Abilene and Tampa as an Air Force child, for my father. And then he got out in 1979, 1980, and came up into the Hampton Roads part of Virginia, which is the east coast of Virginia, just north of North Carolina. And he started his practice. He is a physician, a general surgeon, and started his practice after his Air Force time, and been in Hampton Roads since 1980. Yeah.
Awesome. So Hampton Roads is how far? Like in Suffolk, Virginia, how far are you from the beach, Virginia Beach?
25 miles.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean, I knew where it was at because I used to live there, but
yeah,
I like to tell the audience like it's super close.
Yeah, it's a huge metropolitan area that includes the like you just stated, the Virginia Beach metropolitan side of it, Norfolk, Suffolk, Chesapeake, Newport News, Hampton, and it's really a huge military area. So, for example, Langley and NASA are in Hampton, Fort Eustis and Newport News. And then, of course, on the south side, you have the largest naval base in the world and Naval Station Norfolk and Oceana Naval Air Station. And all the even or East Coast SEAL teams are in Little Creek or in Dam Neck and Fort Story, Joint Base Fort Story. So, and then we have naval, a lot of ship repair, a lot of the Newport News shipbuilding area. So this community is all about service. almost everybody here either is in military or is military contractors, and it makes a great community to live and raise families.
So when you graduated high school, what made you go, I want to be a fireman?
So I graduated high school when I was 17, and then you couldn't enter the fire department till you're 18. And so I went to Old Dominion University, which is in Norfolk, a great university, and I started pursuing to be a firefighter. And in the early 90s, it was very difficult to land police or firefighting jobs. Not like today, where the police departments and the fire departments are hiring pretty much a lot of people. There's a lot of openings, and so the best way to get hired was to have an education. That's what they all told you. And two was be a paramedic.
So what did you what made you say, I want to be a fireman? You said you graduated at 17, you had to wait a year, so you went to school, but what drove you? Like, was there any inspiration? Like, there's a lot in my past that community, that's why I serve the community, is for the simple fact is they saved my sister's life, and they saved, so many interventions that you guys do that actually make a permanent mark of goodness on somebody's life. So what inspired you?
I have an uncle Jim Trainum. He was a firefighter in Arlington County, Virginia, and he's my mother's sister's husband, Jim. And so my uncle, and I would go to the firehouse as a little boy and watch Uncle Jim at the firehouse. And he is now a detective in DC in narcotics, and still thriving. I see him on Dateline sometimes and all that. He's a very, very excellent detective and servant. But growing up at a firehouse, by going up with Aunt Maureen and my mom, and it's bigger than life. When you're a boy or a young person, a girl, and you go to a firehouse and see the gear, the equipment, the people, it ingrains you to want to do that. And fortunately, in the early 90s, the fire department was it was a natural place for a young person who I lifeguarded and was in that type of style of people that I hung out around with. And they'd always say, go to the fire department. And I'm like, that's why I should do that. How do I get there? I don't know, research and going to Old Dominion, and then going into these different processes through Hampton Roads and getting an opportunity to serve was a childhood dream that became reality. And that's what the key is that whether, we see a doctor or a nurse, or we see, a clinician, or we see a teacher, that's all good. That's a great job to do. But how do you obtain it is a question. And I got that opportunity.
Yeah, we didn't have Google growing up. So we had to do old school library research and talk to actual people.
I went to the library at Old Dominion and I checked out a book. It said how to become a firefighter. And the one I got was a book from 1960 for LA City. And it said you had to be 6 foot tall to be a firefighter. So I thought I was defeated at that point, because even with heels on, I cannot be 6 foot. And so I had to go through HR in the fire departments, and they said, no, there is no height restriction or whatever. But I was deflated for a little bit because there was no Google. There's no way to go. You had to go stand in line at Human Resources to make an appointment.
Right.
And I was, quickly the myth was busted. But back in the 60s, there was a height requirement to be a firefighter, and all that is not there anymore. So I was able to start serving. Yeah, in 1993, 2 years after getting out of high school, I started serving, and I from there I grew up in a firehouse because I was 19 years old as a career firefighter, couldn't even legally drink per se, and serving on a fire truck.
Well, I will say the benefits to being a firefighter is I know that you serve 24-hour shifts, but your firefighters can cook. And I specifically know that your fire station, they are amazing. You had a pastry chef at one time, right?
Yeah, I mean, firefighters obviously, and it's excellent because jack of all trades, heating and air, plumbing, cooking. We all say we're the best paid janitors in the world because, man, we can clean something. And but it's not just that; it's just just like with the military, camaraderie. Brotherhood, sisterhood, taking care of one's family. I know right now, my kids are all adults now, but if something would have happened to me or my wife and I had to leave my children with somebody in a firehouse for 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, you would never even you would do it, and you would never think that they wouldn't be cared for, treated right, or like you if you were their parent. And that brotherhood, sisterhood, that love of each other, it becomes a family. I know it's cliche, but it is a family, and it grows, and it kind of makes you want to do it more and work overtime and be around people, and then of course and run on calls, of course, as well.
Right, absolutely. So I guess I do want to talk about your experience going to other countries.
I was very fortunate through our urban search and rescue team. There are 28 national USAR. When I say USAR, urban search and rescue, there's 28 national teams in the country that are funded by FEMA. And Virginia Task Force 2, Virginia 2, we call it, is based out of Virginia Beach Fire Department, is the sponsoring agency. And then other departments in Hampton Roads feed that with everything from firefighters, medics, canine search specialists, engineers, you name it. It's a 270 person team, and we're 3 deep, and we deploy.
What does 3 deep mean? Because we can't use abbreviations because we do have civilians listening.
Yeah, 3 deep. So being 270 people on a federal task force is that we deploy with 80 people, and 80 people, you have to have 3 persons for each component because of you get to be deployed for 9/11, for example, and then another attack happens. So you get your team with logistics and cash.
So we call them a team, a B team, and a C team.
Or in our case, red, white, and blue, same thing, right? Yes. And so when I'm up, it's my month. Then or if I'm not up and there's a deployment and somebody in my component cannot deploy, then you will. But the beauty of it is that we do CONUS, which is Continental United States, or OCONUS, outside the Continental United States deployments. And our task forces are very deployed, and I say deployed missions. We're mission-based. Anything from Oklahoma City bombing to 9/11, the Pentagon for Virginia 2. You talked about going outside, our OCONUS, the Haiti earthquake in 2012, if I remember right. Certainly, all the work we've had in Puerto Rico and St. John and outside again, the Continental. But we're the federal responders for anything to do with building collapse, earthquake, flood events, hurricane response. And we were sent out the door because the president, through declaration, will send a federal task force to a locality, in this case, a state. So the state of Florida it will request the assistance of federal task force, and then we will go deploy. And I've been very fortunate about 22 deployments in my time. And you mentioned the Haiti earthquake, which was a fantastic deployment for not only Virginia 2, but we became USA 5 when we deploy outside the continental United States, and we're given a USA number. So Virginia 2 became USA 5. New York City, or New York Task Force 1, was USA 6. But there were 6 teams that were deployed to Haiti, and we were one of the 6.
Wow.
I had no idea that firefighters were actually deployed.
Yep.
No idea.
I brought it up.
We become temporary federal employees, and as temporary federal employees, our fire departments will go ahead through MOUs with the federal government. We'll basically, I'm going to say the word loan. I don't know what the right word is, but we'll become temporary federal employees and deploy for our expertise. And our expertise is search and rescue, shoring buildings up, breaking, breaching concrete, wide area search, working in floodwaters, moving water. So that expertise we use at home becomes our expertise in Haiti, becomes our expertise in Katy, Texas, becomes our expertise in Katrina. So that becomes the funnel of firefighters throughout the country. For example, there's 7 task forces in California because of high threat of earthquake. Mm-hmm. Virginia, there's ours, Virginia 2, Virginia 1's in Fairfax County. And then you have Maryland 1, which is just north out of Montgomery County. And like, why is it? And then Philly has one. Like, why are there 4 task forces on the East Coast within 250 miles of each other? Because the DC, because we have to protect our government. And then you have New York 1. So there's 28 teams. And for example, the tornadoes that go through the Midwest, mm-hmm. Nebraska Task Force 1, Texas Task Force 1, Missouri 1, you have those teams in the Midwest are there for a lot of the tornado work. And then you have your East Coast teams for our government and for a lot of the hurricane response. And then the California and Washington one are for the earthquake response. But we all integrate. We all work together. I'll be on deployments with Cal 5, for example, with Missouri 1, with Tennessee 1. You just work together as a team. And like the military, a firefighter or a soldier or a Marine or an airman, you might not be in a different base or a different assignment, but you're all trained well and you get along well and you integrate well.
That's awesome. Did you were you deployed to 9/11?
No, I was in Bechtel, Nevada, as part of myself and 40 firefighters from across the country were outside of Las Vegas, Nevada on 9/11. We all flew in on September 10th. So the day before 9/11, we all flew in. We were taking an advanced radiation class in Bechtel near Area 51. And the morning of 9/11, there were New York firefighters there. There were Detroit firefighters there. There were firefighters from Cal, from Virginia, everywhere. And we watched, like everybody else in the world did, on a small little, TV in the mess hall in Bechtel, Nevada, saying, that kind of looks like a good fire. Meaning, think the World Trade Center was on fire. Nobody knew at the time that the plane had struck the towers. But so we all were, when air travel was restored 3 days later, I made it back on that Thursday, and Virginia 2 was already deployed to the Pentagon. So yes, I would have deployed if I would have been, back at home. But our team spent 7 days at the Pentagon with Florida, with Virginia 1, with Fairfax and Montgomery County, Maryland 1, and Virginia 2 were deployed to the Pentagon, and then the rest, the 25 remaining, were all deployed to World Trade Center. So all 28 teams are deployed at one time.
Wow. So how are you feeling about that event? I mean, that is probably one of the biggest firefighter events in our history.
Yeah, I lost friends. Everybody in the fire service lost somebody, whether you knew them or not. But I knew a good amount of firefighters who died that day just through the federal system, through the task force. And it's humbling to know, this is how I feel, is 343 New York City firefighters, and then, of course, New York City Police or NYPD and the Port Authority lost as well. But if we isolate on the fire side, 343 people died so that 70,000 people could live. So I look at that and I say, if 70,000 people are directly related to the response of FDNY, the work done by the firefighters, police officers, and the Port Authority, so that 70,000 people could live, I see that as a win. I don't see it as a win that terrorists came onto our soil.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But I will as a fire chief and as a firefighter, and I have and will sacrifice my life so that other people will live, because that's why I take the job I've had, or I do. Just like a police officer, just like a nurse or a physician, just like
absolutely
a teacher. We know a teacher right now in a classroom will sacrifice their life so that their children can live. So in service, whatever service we decide to do,
right.
I feel like 9/11 was a success in a way because so many people were able to survive. What hurts me about 9/11 and many other things, but one thing that I can think of is that more firefighters have died of the 343 post 9/11 because of the medical care, the treatment.
Right.
And again, that might be inevitable because of some of in any of our USAR deployments, we talked about Haiti earlier, the amount of material that I took into my lungs in Haiti, working concrete and cutting people and prying people and working, saws. That might be something I have to live with the rest of my career, or the smoke I take in as a firefighter.
Right.
But if it happened again today, I believe the post treatment would be much better for everybody involved, even the civilians that were up there. And I think that's one big lesson learned we got, is how to treat our responders, our citizens after a massive event like that.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you, and I didn't ask, we had Bill Hayes on here a couple episodes ago. Yeah, he's an exceptional human.
Tremendous hero. And I like how he said, I'm not a hero. The people who have given their lives are the heroes. I'm not a hero. And I'll remember that forever, watching him on that podcast. So
Yeah, he's well, and there are people who celebrate him and he goes to different functions and, in uniform. And, he says that at every event I've ever been with him at. But what is your best call? What was your best call?
Well, we define best in different ways. So I'm going to go to
whichever way you define it, because
I mean, obviously
right.
a life save would be. But I was in 2010. I was the shift commander in Virginia Beach Fire Department, and an F-18 from Oceana Naval Air Station had a dual engine failure and crashed into an apartment complex, an over 55 apartment complex, which resulted in a 7-alarm fire. 64 units burned. 2 pilots were injured. It was an 18 Delta, so it was a trainer aircraft. So 2 pilots ejected. But we fought that fire for about 11 and a half hours. Fuel-fed fire, multiple structures burning, and I was the incident commander. I was down the street at the time, the shift commander, and was the command officer for that fire. The fire department, EMS, police, the Navy, it was a very coordinated response, not only from the firefight, but for the 8 days that followed. We did things that night or that day. It crashed at 12:06 p.m. just afternoon, and then the fire was declared under control at midnight. But we did things in that firefight that were not only heroic, and I know Hayes would say that heroism is not defined by, but I saw firefighters where I said, we're going to kill a firefighter in front of my eyes right now. And for some reason, the training, the equipment, the experience, the wisdom, the elements that we all train for, being in a Navy town with all the aircraft and military activity, it worked out well. We ended up having no fatalities of our civilians. We ended up having injuries to the pilots, understandably, when they eject that low. And we had some firefighter injuries. But what hurts me today is in the post-incident, the next morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, when I was being relieved by the next incoming incident commander, because again, the incident lasted 8 days, is we were doing a hot wash, a debriefing in one of our FEMA tents that we set up. And we all talked about the firefight. And up to that point, I was going to hand over command to the next incoming officer, command officer. And I said, we'll be defined not by what happened today, but in 10 years, how many people will die, again, kind of like post 9/11, from the carcinogens, from the sucking in all the carbon fibers and all that. And unfortunately, right now, we have lost a firefighter, a good friend of mine, Matt Chiavarati, Captain Chiavarati. He died last April from occupational cancer because of the jet crash. And we have now 5 additional firefighters. So 6 total of the 140 people who worked that fire, 6 right now. And they're as young and healthy as I am. And they're beautiful people. And right now, 5 more are battling cancer, and all linked to that one incident. So it was one of the most satisfying responses or incidents I worked, due to the size, the national scene, because whenever you put a military jet into an apartment complex, of course, it's going to get the national response of media and, followership on that. But I feel like I did a fantastic job, that the crews did a fantastic job, that we did well. And now I have to, Chevy died, and now hopefully the other firefighters who worked that incident right now will find cure. But it's a struggle, and I still wonder, I'm going to be a 50-year-old male and say goodbye to my daughter, my son, and my wife because of what I did on that incident. I don't know. I'm still, luckily right now, cancer-free, but so rewarding, yes, but also humbling.
So when you guys have those hot washes and you guys come together to communicate like the events and what transpired and how to do things differently, is there someone in those conversations that talk about the equipment and how they need to be better so that they can invent the things that you need?
Yeah, that comes, and that hot wash, maybe not so much there, but we do a PIA, a post-incident analysis. And we also have like the firefighternearmiss.com. We have other avenues, but what you're speaking of, absolutely. A Boston firefighter was killed probably about 8 to 10 years ago. And the result was that the hose line the firefighter was operating on had no thermal rating. And so the fire burned through the hose, cutting off the firefighter from the exit, and the firefighter died. So an example of that is now NFPA requires that the jackets of our hose have thermal protection up to a certain temperature so that you're not going to cut off your hose line while in a fire. So those things will always continue, from our breathing apparatus to our gear that we wear. I
love that they're constantly improving. I think that's a requirement.
The testing that we do of ourselves, so annual physicals are required, annual cancer screenings are required. We are learning right now that I just had my annual cancer screening done, a gallery test, and I will get mine done annually. And hopefully we'll find if I do have any markers or any indications of cancer in an early stage that we'll be able to identify. So the technologies are improving daily, weekly, monthly. Our health is being monitored better. Our mental health and wellness is being monitored extremely better than it ever has. So the hot wash, we identified maybe some tactical decisions we could have done better or that we did well. And then the PIA is when we identify technologies, whether it could be policy changes, regulations, or codes that we could change at the government level, local or state or federal. So I think that's a good way to answer that is, yes, we're constantly trying to improve. But, it's like anything. If you don't try to improve what you're doing and you stay in the past, and you'll become the past. You will succumb to not improving.
I have a question. So when you say that you go through the testing and you have more mental health help than ever before, is that just for your department, or is that for every department, like every station?
I'll start locally, because every problem is local. Yes, my fire department and Hampton's fire department is much better today than it was, but the nation's fire service has improved dramatically. So I would say that everybody who sits in my seat leading a metropolitan fire department, that they would absolutely say that the mental health wellness resources, care, treatment, and identification measures are greatly improved. But certainly for my organization, it has as well. Yes, Dorothy.
All right. I was just asking because I know I have a friend who's a firefighter in Florida. I'm not going to say which station, but when I met him, I think it was a year ago, they had 2 that died by suicide in their house, like one right after the other. They, I think, ended up with 3 to 4 within a span of 6 months. So I'm just like, okay, how did that happen? And how can we change that? And so that's why I was like really interested in what you just, that's why I asked that question, because I'm like, is this nationwide or is this just in your house?
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that, suicide for firefighters, but I think police officer suicides now are not only identified, but are better tracked and are now a national desire to prevent. And certainly in the fire side, the rate of suicide is high. But now the dialogue is no longer voodoo to bring it up. It's no longer a sign of weakness. It's no longer a sign that you can't still do the job you love or be a husband or wife, a parent. And we've talked about, Dr. Royster and I talked about, is an injury. This is how I tell my firefighters and treat it in my fire department in Hampton Roads is, if I go on a fire today and get burned or hurt my knee or have a concussion due to a debris falling on me, I go to the hospital to treat it, and nobody looks. They just say, "Oh, Mike got injured on the fire ground." But if my bucket gets too full, if I have an injury to my mental health and or my behavioral or my ability, that now it's no longer voodoo to say I need to go get help and go get help in the treatment area that I can and be treated the same way with federal FML, with my abilities through my city, my resources in the city. Risk management will treat me the same. So what I'm trying to say is that an injury to my body is now an injury to me is now equally respected.
I love
by
that.
Clinicians like yourself and by the people who allow us to go back to work and return. It's no longer so. If I have a suicidal desire or thought, I will no longer risk losing my job. I will now be able to be treated for it and then be able to return to work. Of course, aftercare or post-care will occur, but yes, it's so much better today than it was 5 years ago.
There's no guilt, there's no shame, there's no embarrassment with your invisible wounds. And I do. He's always been a huge advocate for mental health, and it's actually like part of, what he wrote about. He wrote an article about a firefighter, and I'll let you tell about that. Then we'll talk about
it. So Kevin and Paula Worth. Kevin, if you think of firefighter and you go to the Webster Dictionary and you type in firefighter, Kevin Worth's picture, his bio, who he is, would show up. He's your quintessential place in glass, break when needed, go out there and do great things, go back in glass. And Kevin he's not only a great friend of mine, but he's an excellent firefighter. And in 2014, Kevin ran an incident in which a sedan was T-boned by a truck. And there were seven people in a Nissan Sentra. And of the 7 people, and there's 6 were children, 13 years of age or younger. And the driver was an adult. And Kevin, there were 4 people in the engine company initially responding. I was the command officer, got there right after the engine company. Well, it broke Kevin. It broke Kevin a lot because of me, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, how I hurt Kevin. But the incident was horrific. Of that, 4 children deceased, an adult deceased. So it was a mass casualty, mass death, very horrific call. But I love to write, and I love to celebrate the actions of people. So I put Kevin and his crew in for a National Award of Valor called the Ben Franklin Award of Valor, national level, and they were awarded this national honor. It's the highest level honor you can get in the country for what we do.
Wow.
So we flew them down to Dallas and the crew and Kevin, and how Kevin wrote it. And when I wrote the article about Kevin and Paula, is Kevin's writing supplemented my writing. So I was telling the story in my way. Kevin's telling the story in his way, and you got to see how they measure. It's amazing.
Yeah.
He said that from the moment he arrived in Dallas for this award, he was on parade. There were cameras. There was pomp and circumstance. There was a black tie event. There was stage or these medals. And he was dying inside because he had to relive the crash, the interventions he did, the death, the smell, everything that goes into.
It re-traumatized him. Yeah.
It re-traumatized him. So Kevin and I decided to attack it. I'm not going to say together at first, because at first I didn't know Kevin was injured. Mm-hmm. At first I saw this strong, buff, gruff firefighter that was in the background.
And he's just showing up where he's ordered to show.
Yes.
Suffering the whole time.
And Paula, his wife, is a firefighter, master firefighter as well. I think she got promoted since I left Virginia Beach. I think she's a captain now. And Paula was his outlet. And Paula, being in the fire service, was able to harness and help Kevin. But when Kevin would show up to work outside the home, he would be this person that was starting to disconnect, anxiety, no sleeping patterns. He was not the same Kevin.
All the post-traumatic stress symptoms.
Yeah, and his tremendous way that Kevin can do it is he listed insomnia, anxiety, depression, fear of being alone, vitality. He had to start setting goals for himself just to get through the day. And the goals were very basic, like get out of bed. That was his goal. It wasn't a goal like go to the golf course or, hyperactivity and hypersensitivity. So Kevin's dealing with those when I'm parading him across the stage with cameras and pop and circumstances, interviews, dinners, more interviews, more dinners. So
I had no idea it was re-traumatizing. You had no idea it was re-traumatizing him.
Oh, and
we're proud, man. We don't share.
Yeah.
We just do what we're ordered to do.
But he started being medicated too. I mean, his medication, he ended up thinking was a short-term goal, not goal, it's a short-term win. It wasn't a long-term win. So he would feel immediately better on medication, but then go into greater depression. So he had to fight through that because he was a compliant. A lot of firefighters who end up in suicide will not be compliant and or seek. He was seeking and was compliant.
Right.
So Kevin today is still PTSD, and that's where I came up, and it's not a new term. I'm not, great like you guys are, Dr. Royster, but post-traumatic stress disorder, that disorder for Kevin hurts us. It's not a disorder, it's an injury, post-traumatic stress injury. And again, I'm not clinician. I love to write, I love to read, but that's yours. But when we say somebody has a disorder, does that harmful? When we say that he has a post-traumatic stress injury, the reason we like that term is because an injury I can recover from.
Right.
Injury to my arm, my head, whatever. But if I have a disorder, I don't know if I can recover. So Kevin now is an advocate for the injury side to identify who may have, and it could be a baby code, it could be a child, drowning, it could be a horrific crash like this. But we both agree, Kevin and I agree about our buckets, and our buckets fill different rates. Some people's bucket will never fill, and they could have the most horrific career in the world, but it will never fill. Some people could have a career of 2 months and their bucket fill in 2 months and everything, and be done with their family, their job, and maybe seek means like suicide or substance abuse. But unless we recognize we have to recognize we have a bucket. Then we have to recognize when our bucket is getting to a point that we need assistance. And assistance might be that I call out today and take a day to sleep and rest. That might be how I get my bucket down a little bit. Maybe go to the golf course, bucket down. Maybe seek help. Dr. Royster, bucket down. Or if I choose substance abuse, maybe my bucket's decreasing only because of the pseudo, not because the actual.
Correct. It is a Band-Aid. Yes.
A Band-Aid.
And we call that self-medicating. But Dr. Frank Ochberg actually is the one who came up with the post-traumatic stress injury. He was a psychiatrist in Michigan State University, by the way. And he lives down in the Keys. And he came up with this number cycle, and it's really amazing. So I've had the pleasure to meet him. But it is very cool that he did create that PTSI. He actually, because he didn't like the fact that a disorder is something that is, spans over a lifetime. And he liked the fact that it was injury because he created different interventions to alleviate a lot of those symptoms. I typically use post-traumatic stress symptoms because it is, like you said, a myriad of symptoms over, a certain amount of time, because it has to be post 31 days in order to be considered post. Before that, it's acute stress disorder. So when the incident occurs up till the 31st day, we diagnose that as acute stress disorder. But with regard to PTSD, I mean, clinicians who are trauma interventionists like me or do trauma therapy on the daily, we focus more on how to alleviate those symptoms and get people to have bigger goals than getting out of bed and taking a shower. But if those are the goals they need for that day, that's okay too.
Sure. And Kevin became an advocate for the department, the region, and the country of, I'll make it more simple. Hi, I'm Kevin. I have an injury. And when you look at him again, you would consider Kevin to be the quintessential poster child for firefighters.
Right.
But he had something that a lot of us don't. He has a spouse, and at the time certainly too, that knew his job, knew what he did, and was able to relate. And that's one thing that I think is important for our viewers and our listeners, is that when I don't have a spouse, not saying Mike, but I as a firefighter doesn't have a spouse that wants to hear my workday or my 24-hour shift and know about the smells, what I saw, did, what it affects me and everything. And then you result in seeking your help through ways, like talk about self-medication through either drinking or substance abuse, or you try to get your advice from a firefighter who may be not so sympathetic with your needs. You're a wuss. Get over it. This is a job that requires men, not people like, and then all of a sudden so Paula was Kevin's rock. And not only because she was a spouse, but she was a spouse who understood.
Right.
And
walked in the booth.
Right. Right. Yeah. Trauma, triumph, a journey in our boots. Yeah. And so Paula was a hero for Kevin and for all of us, and still, tremendous for him. But I always say the new Kevin is the Kevin that most people know is not the new Kevin. The new Kevin that I know right now is not the Kevin I knew and I met him in 1996.
Right.
But he is so much better now that we like most people not know that Kevin went through all this because he wanted to get better. And that's the number one thing, is you have to want to get better.
Yes.
You have to want to admit to somebody. And I always say, what I tell Dr. Royster as my clinician, as my therapist, is of nobody else's business. And I have to have that trust in her, and she has to have that trust in me that we're going to work together. But in this case, Kevin has trust in people helping him. And that is key to anything that goes on, whether it's our doctor who's helping me out with my physical illness or injuries, or in my case, my post-stress, is that trust needs to maintain. So you have to admit, have trust. And from there is that you want to meet the goals. And if the goal is for any firefighter or military soldier or sailor or airman to get better tomorrow, then that's unrealistic for anybody, and that has to be up front that we will get you better, but you might have to work at this. We will.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. The stuff didn't happen overnight. It's accumulated over time. You don't go from a 1 to a 10. Like it's always a stairway. Like there's no way around it.
I agree. I always say whoever wants to get their golf game better, if I go hire a pro and that pro's going to take me, and that pro says within 2 days I'm going to have you hitting 300 yards drives down the middle of the fairway, I should not hire that person.
Right.
Because it's an unrealistic thing. And same with what we're talking about here, Janelle, on our mental side and wellness and our abilities is, if I think I can meet somebody and within an hour session or 2 hour session or some work be better in 2 days, then that's unrealistic. So it has to be realistic, admit to help, work your treatment, identify that you are not alone. God bless all of us. We're not alone. We're just not. There's a whole family of us out there, you know. And the last thing, it's not the last, but the last thing that I think for Kevin is Kevin never quit. He's still on the job right now. He's still thriving, and he never quit. And it's easy to say, because the reason I say that, he's at retirement age. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us, when we get a retirement age and we know we can walk off the job, it's easier just to walk off and try to work through. Mm-hmm. But if Kevin would have walked off the job and retired, he would be still in that same problem without the resources that are available, because he's a retiree at that point.
Right.
Use your resources while you're still employed, while you're still on the job. Don't retire and seek it, because you won't be able to get the access we have now. Right. So that helped Kevin out tremendously as well.
So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. I love the story of Kevin, because he is a success story, you know, and there are so many that aren't. I mean, the national number is way higher with substance abuse, but the national narrative is 22 a day. And firefighters, I mean, Ocala lost 6 in a matter of months between substance abuse and suicide, or suicide-assisted substance abuse, right? You know, you eat so much, or whatever you do, snort so much cocaine, you think you can fly, right? There are people that firmly believe that, and it's absolutely tragic. And I think that people aren't aware that firemen suffer, police suffer, people who serve suffer every day. And there are resources and there are people available that, you know, you don't have to throw some dirt on it. No. But what I want to talk about now is your leadership and education. I have a book. You can't really see it. Put yours up, Mike.
Okay.
There it is. Yes, much. Critical decision-making, point-to-point leadership, and fire and emergency services. Now, I met you 5 years ago. We presented together with Dr. Dickens and I think Rainey and her husband, David, right?
David Dale, yep.
And you stepped up and started talking about leadership. And I think it was the first time the Virginia Counselors Association included non-clinicians in presentations, which was amazing. But that's, you know, the talented writing of Dr. Dickens. I will say that. She's amazing. I would love to have her on here one day, you know. Definitely. But you talk about leadership, and I was kind of awestruck. So I want to talk about your education, because you started as a firefighter at 18. You have been serving for 31 years. But at 18, did you go, I'm going to be chief? Like, was that a mindset that you had? Or like, how did you get here?
I had a captain, Greg Winkman, who lives in Florida now, retired. He does a golf cart. Florida. Yeah, he does a golf cart company out there where he repairs and rehabs golf carts and sends them out to the villages or whatever and runs them back. So great person.
That's awesome.
All I wanted to do as a young firefighter is be Captain Greg Winkman, and he was bigger than life. He was, and I say a captain, so a captain runs a rig. You know, a captain is in a firehouse running a rig, so it's our first line supervisor. So to answer your question, I never want to be a chief or the chief. I just wanted to be Greg. And Greg instilled leadership on everybody he taught or was entrusted with him, but certainly he did for me, that my ability of being a boot firefighter up to where when I started getting promoted was that I was valued, my decisions were valued, that I had a voice, that I could speak my needs, that he valued me as much as I valued him. And so first of all, leadership is about people. If
because you are the picture, like if you looked up servant leadership, you would see Chief Barakey's picture. Legit. I'm not kidding. I've met a lot of people in my, career, and you are the essence of servant leadership. Like the way you talk, the way you speak, and I'm going to make you blush.
I am.
It's true. Yeah. It's true.
Well, first of all, thank you, because I think you said servant leadership is, the essence of leadership to me is definition wise or not, is when I turn around, if somebody's behind me, or if I have people behind me that I'm leading, because it's about being in front of or providing for others. But the best leaders in the world sometimes lead, as we know, I know it's cliche, but from the back. So I can be the best leader in the world and have 50, 100 people in front of me who are doing the same mission, vision, the same thoughts, not solo thoughts of Mike. You don't have to think like me. I want you to think differently, but to serve, give, provide, execute, be proficient, train. And any of our high demanding jobs, military, fire, police, is we're joking ourselves and we're joking the people that we serve if we're not proficient, efficient, and effective on anything that we're asked to do. And so that's what I started doing with Greg through Captain Wakeman is I didn't want to pump the truck. I want to know how the truck pumped. I didn't want to be a medic. I want to be the medic that knew why I was performing IVs, medication therapy, extrication skills, shoring buildings up. I wanted to be, but to do that, you have to dedicate, and we all are dedicated. But if I dedicate myself to the how or the why and anything we do, kind of like we talked earlier about Kevin might be depressed, but if I don't try to seek the how and the why of Kevin, then he's just a person in the corner who's depressed and gets no attention. So the leadership that I started was I wanted to be like Greg. And as I started developing and getting promoted and all that, I felt like that people wanted to be like Mike at some point, whatever time that was. And then we started developing my teams and my crews.
It's just not on a cereal box, folks.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. MJ, not Michael John, but MJ was Michael Jordan. I'll be like Mike. But the best part of being a leader isn't certainly being the leader. It's about seeing others who you have an opportunity to train, develop, give an opportunity to perform and see their development. And that's, it's like children, right? As my children now are adults and how they start being independent on their own, I feel good as a parent, not because I got my ice cream cone when they were 4 years old at Dairy Queen, because now they can pay their own mortgage and they can have a productive member of society. And so what I love about leadership in the fire service, military, is that most people in our jobs are sponges and they want to be led. But what they want to do too is not only be led, is they want to have an opportunity to make decisions. And so that's why my book, as we talked, is critical decision making, because that's what sets us all apart. We talk about the UAVs and the drones and the equipment out there. They're doing the job and work of all of us. Police department have UAVs and drones that go in there before the SWAT team enters. And we have obviously drones in the air over in Afghanistan. And if the human element isn't there, then and we're all robots, and I say that of course in air quotes, we're all robots, then we can be replaced, and we're not of value to either the community, to the citizens, or in my case, my city. So the humanistic side is what makes us thrive, but it also makes us vulnerable.
So I read a book from Simon Sinek, which is absolutely a leadership expert, and it's called Leaders Eat Last. And I believe that to be true in your case. But my question to you is, when you see the rookies and you see the guys coming in day one, like, how do you know that person is going to make a career? Do you know, like, what type of skill, not just skills, but like personality, or like how can you determine who's going to leave and who's going to stay?
If I had this answer, I'd probably be on a different circuit right now. Wow.
Well, I'm building you up to that. So
I say I don't know. It's okay in our job and what we do professionally say I don't know, but that's one sign of a good leader. I would say that there are traits or values that I see in people that I feel like will succeed, and there's traits and values I see in people that I think the $1 million question: is a leader born, or is a leader developed, or do they develop that skill set? And mine is it's both. There's certainly people out there that are born leaders, and that it doesn't matter if they're in kindergarten, if they're in the military, if they're in fire, that they have that innate ability to lead.
Right.
But there's also the people that I really value are the people that need, like I did with Greg, is I need to follow for a while. I need somebody. I want to look at a good follower that has some traits of leadership and develop that versus the person who is the innate leader. And a lot of times being an innate leader in a academy in the first part of your training denotes that usually you're, and I say bullied, not in a bad way, but you're strong mind, strong-willed, strong temperament. And so people naturally let you lead because you are always that person.
And they're willing to persevere through.
Willing to persevere. But I like I like looking for the one in the corner that's inquisitive and, that's taking it in, and necessarily not the most timid person, but the person I think is trying to absorb. Yeah. And then from there, we look at how to get them that individual. So now they're squad leader. So now they're rewarded because now they're going to lead PT today. So in leadership, we always can we talk about goals that are attainable and achievable? So in the Fire Academy, instead of telling somebody you're the squad leader for the whole 12-month of Fire Academy, I like to see when our training staff changes out every 3 weeks or 4 weeks or at a benchmark. When you change I like to see somebody lead PT, and then somebody who didn't lead PT will lead the cleanup of the academy. And then you get these people that are now given the responsibility. So they're achieving small goals, and then they're receiving feedback from the training staff or from their squad mates. That's how we
give them an opportunity to shine in the area that they're passionate about, and rotating it knows that they have to step up. So now they have to be mindful. But I want to talk about two things in your book. We have 7 minutes left because I know I'm trying to stick to your schedule. Your storm schedule. Right So I do want to talk about the sofa Superstore, and Kyle Wilson, both of which are in your book.
Yeah. So we in South Carolina, the Super Sofa
Store. Say that 3 times.
Fire, yes.
Woo!
When 9 of our brothers in Charleston died pre 9/11. So I'm sorry, 2009. Mm-hmm. I believe it was 2009. And
I think it was 2007, but
2007. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And if I refer to page or whatever, yeah. So I need to call the author of this and get it right. But it was other than 9/11, it's the largest loss of life of any firefighters in one single incident, again, outside of 9/11. And
9, right?
What's that?
It was 9?
9 firefighters, yes. The memorial is beautiful down. And right outside the actual where the stones are laid is where they were found, where the Super Sofa store was located. But what's humbling about that is the Charleston Fire Department was and still is one of the top fire departments in the country, a tremendous fire department. Their apparatus, their training, their dedication, their commitment. It could happen here. It could happen everywhere. But those firefighters died together, and I say together. The commitment to each other, to those 9 firefighters at a time of horrific conditions, heavy fire, making interior work it's so humbling that we don't want to ever kill a firefighter or kill anybody in the line of duty. But I believe that changed the fire service. It did. There's multiple sentinel moments in our world, but that was one of our sentinel moments in the fire service was that fire. And Charleston, again, will always resonate with me or resonate with anybody who was working or part of that time period in our history.
So the event occurred in June 2007, but your reference was 2009 article.
Oh, right.
So
You have a picture brain. You memorize very well. And I don't love celebrating when we talk about Kyle Wilson. I do not love celebrating when firefighters die in the line of duty or give their life. What I want to do is utilize those moments, those sentinel moments in our service that will prevent a firefighter in the city of Suffolk or a firefighter in Hampton Roads or in LA from dying. But service comes at an expense, and service is at times will result in injury and death. And that's why we memorialize. That's why we remember. That's how we celebrate, not that they died, but celebrate what they contributed. And that's what I think I got out of the Charleston. We call it the Charleston Nine. The Charleston Nine.
Wow.
God bless them. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people think it's a very romantic job. And at the end of the day, we got to remember that it is a service that, when a fire happens, we run out and you run in.
Yeah.
I think people forget that there is, a lot of people, oh man, they're crazy for doing that. And it's just like, are they, or are they heroes?
Well, those 9 are heroes. Yes. Yeah. But I think the passion to serve, I believe, like you talked about Dorothy earlier, working at the Children's Hospital, been there for 25 years in that job. And I see the commitment of nurses and doctors and the staff, the ESD staff that cleans the rooms, and the hospitals. I consider those people heroes because, shift work in a hospital, your shift is 12 hours. By the time you arrive and your shift is over and you do your pass down, it's 14 hours. And then you come back and what I consider the job of the firefighter or the paramedic and all that is that they let me do. I have not worked one day in my career in 31 years. They let me do what I love so much that I don't consider it to be work. And I don't consider it to be heroes in the fact that to serve somebody else, to provide for somebody else is an honor or a privilege. So I feel like it's a privilege to get on a rig. It's a privilege to go into somebody's home at their worst time, or that they call 911 because it is their worst time, whether it is to me or the person down the street that's inconvenienced, that person's having their worst time. So it's a privilege. It's an honor. It's something that will be forever. Think about this. If anybody in our community was going to choose a pediatrician for their child, before they took that child to the pediatrician, they would research, Google how many stars that person has, call their friends and buddies up and look for references before they would allow a pediatrician to touch their child. If they call 911, they will hand me their child and I can walk out to a medic unit, take them to the hospital and not ask one question, not ask what my credentials are, not ask for my ID. It's just being on that rig is that much value to the community that they will hand me their child. And that's humbling and that's respect, but it's also the value that I think that not only myself, but the many, many others who serve in our roles need to value back to the community and not do anything to lose that trust.
Awesome. Yeah. So my question to you is, you have served your community for 31 years. What is your biggest takeaway? If you were to retire tomorrow, and you're not, because you're Grady Judd and you're going to be there for 50 years. You know who Grady Judd is, right? That, like the cowboy law enforcement in Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yes. I do have a time limit on my service, and yes, not yet, but one day I'll be in Florida playing golf.
Well, I live in Polk County, so I had to mention him. Just saying. So, what is your biggest takeaway from all that you've done, all that you've achieved? What is your biggest takeaway for you personally?
The people. It's about people. Talk about serving earlier and servant leadership. Is that the people who commit to do this job, they commit not only themselves, but their family, they have to be committed that it's a lifestyle, but outside of the lifestyle is that to truly do this job well is everybody will be injured in the line of duty. People will lose their lives. People will not be the same for doing this job for 30 years. And what I take away from it is to do the job, do it well, but protect ourselves. However you do that, fitness programs, eating habits or nutrition, seeking mental health wellness advice, and certainly treatment if necessary. Get your cancer screening done yearly. Treat yourself with respect. And the last thing that I will take away from this is that I have hundreds, if not thousands, of brothers and sisters out there that would come and take care of me, just like the military, take care of me and my family. If something happened to me today, I would know my wife and my kids would be treated well the rest of their life. That's what I take away, that it's a family. Again, cliche, but it's not.
You have a camaraderie that's unparalleled. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
So Dorothy's chomping at the bit to ask you her question.
Yes.
Well, we're over time, so
that's okay.
Because
he wants to answer this. I know he does. We're going to see him.
Is this the Showcase Showdown? Yes.
All right. What is the one thing that nobody knows about you?
Ooh.
The only people that know this are very close. So nobody, meaning there are a few people, but in 2018, I donated bone marrow. I was on a national registry at the time. It's called Be the Match. In 1996, a young boy needed a marrow transplant, and outside of our firehouse at a middle school, people lined up down the road to go ahead and become Be the Match, whether you're going to match that person or not. And I got in the registry in 1996, and in 2018, a 12-year-old girl from Argentina, we became a perfect match. And so I went to Georgetown and donated marrow. And young lady has a piece of me now. And
wow, that's amazing.
I was out of work.
I did not know that, Dorothy. So that tells you how much he brags.
Yeah. But the department, I was in Virginia Beach Fire at the time. I had not came to Suffolk yet. And I had put my sick leave in, and I put my FML paperwork. But behind the scenes, they actually kept me on duty per se, because I was serving in that capacity. It was very hard on me. It was very hard to donate that much bone marrow for a 12-year-old. And but what I learned from that, and now, and like before, is I give blood. The minute I get my alert from the American Red Cross, I give blood. Somebody needs my blood more than I do. Somebody needs my marrow. If anybody wants my kidney out there and you're a match, have my kidney. Have half my liver. Is sharing with somebody. Is it might be that I go and take somebody's garbage out tomorrow that couldn't get their garbage out. That might be like the equivalent of giving bone marrow. But if you have an opportunity to give something to somebody, give it to them.
No idea what that means to them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Give them a quarter, give them $1, give them a handshake, buy a burger for somebody, give them your bone marrow, just do something to make somebody else better. And so to answer the question, Dorothy, is that, of course, my wife and family know I did that, but professionally, I try not to speak about it. Not because I'm not honored and all, because it's really kind of a personal thing. And, but I want everybody to know that if you can give blood, if you can go get on a registry, if you can do something, you never know when that phone call, 1996 to 2018, it's a long gap to be on a registry and never hear a word. And that one time is worth it.
Spoken like a true leader.
Yeah, seriously. Absolutely. I mean, this guy on mop floors run along with you. I've seen him do it.
I think you should be teaching leadership to a lot of the people I know anyways. Let's just say
why do you think I connected y'all? Just saying. I do this on purpose, Chief. I definitely, I know that speaking engagements, you have a few, but you need more. Absolutely.
Oh, I love to teach. Well, the reason I love to teach is it's not only the teaching, but it's the engagement with people that hopefully we have a bond with, just being in the same room. Like when Dr. Royce and I met each other, we had an immediate bond of being in the same room, and that bond was because we not just like thinkers in that, but we wanted to serve, we wanted to make people better, but we also wanted to learn what makes us, whether my role or her role, serve somebody. And again, that was an immediate bond. And I think that's what the value of
how could we help each other,
Right. And then the services that you do and the services I do is, how can I get Kevin, what can I do to make somebody else better? And now I have a resource I'll have forever. And now, Dorothy, you and I have that resource we'll have forever,
Yep.
Amen. And if Kevin's willing, Kevin should come on the show with his amazing wife that I think the dynamic between husband and wife and that dynamic that they have is what the world needs to hear, because I hear so many, whether it be in firefighting or police or military, my spouse doesn't understand, and so having a spouse that understands and coming together and helping, that right there is, I believe, 90% of his recovery, is having that spouse being
able
to identify.
Rainey and Dave, they worked for Chief Barakey, and they're married, and I think they've been married 19 years or something. I'm friends with her on Facebook, but she retired as lieutenant, and having them be able to share those experiences and know exactly, they can speak shorthand, know exactly what they're both going through. Like, that's amazing.
Great, fantastic people and fantastic firefighters and officers. And
yeah,
I will reach out to Kevin and Paula.
I'd
and
love
see if
that.
they'd be willing, but Kevin is a very, very big advocate. And that's part of our job too in the service, is being an advocate for others. And he's an advocate, which is, again, makes Kevin who Kevin is. So.
I love that.
I love him already. I haven't even met him.
Well, I read the article. It's pretty, the way it's written, and I mean, I'm sure Chief can send it to you, but
I was going to say, where's the article? Where can I get it?
I will. It was in the December 2019 edition of Fire Engineering, and that's Kevin when he was we were talking about the award that he got in Dallas. That's him getting his award that I didn't know at the time was really affecting him as bad as it was. I can see your link, but it's called it's I'll get my camera here, but after the awards,
and the awards, then what? Kevin and Paula's story, that's amazing. Yeah, we'd love to have them on. That would be wonderful if you can arrange that.
Yes, but he's an advocate, but like Fire Engineering, which is our journal that we on this edition in 2019. The very top, post-traumatic stress growth, suicide, and then the Paula Kevin story. So that's how our industry is addressing. This is 19, so this is 4 years ago, 2024, 5 years ago, right? So we're trying to address this as a service. So
absolutely, I love it. Well, thank you for serving as long as you have and as amazingly as you do, and for as long as you have. Like, keeping this up. Most people don't do this. You know that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, and it's my honor and pleasure. But certainly, what you do, telling the stories like we're doing on the podcast, but certainly, Dr. Royster, Janelle, how you have made it your life's passion to help us, my colleagues, my friends, my brothers, my sisters. I thank you as well. So thank you.
Well, you're worth it.
Thank you.
So, any last questions, Miss Dorothy?
Yes.
What motivates you?
Ooh.
Wow. Love of the job. I haven't worked one day in 31 years. It's like going to, maybe an equivalency for somebody else might be going to the golf course for them or whatever, but this is my passion, my love. I worked at the Children's Hospital on Tuesday night for the night shift. I worked there 24 hours this Sunday coming up. I can't wait for my shift at the hospital. I can't wait for a call to go out right now. I can't wait to, no, I don't know. What drives me and motivates is that it's the best job in the world. And I have a great city manager, Mr. Moore, if you're watching. I have a great city manager who supports the fire department, and a great city council that supports us financially. And I have 318 firefighters out there that are just the best in the world. So that's what motivates me.
Okay, I've never asked this question on this show. So, if I was a fairy godmother and I could grant you 3 wishes for your department, what would they be?
For the department? Wow.
Or firefighting in general. Firefighters in general. Either or.
3 wishes. I don't know.
I think you stumped him, Dorothy. He's got to think about it for a minute.
I love that.
I know that what we love to do is get out the door. So without trying to disrespect the citizens of the community out there, fire. That's what we love to do. We love to fight fire. We love to go to work. So
well, you love. I mean, what is when the firefighters all get together on one day? I remember this, and you hold your firefighter boot up, and people put money in it. What is that for?
For the MDA, Muscular Dystrophy Association. So, our International Association of Firefighters, IAFF, that's our national philanthropy that we do as our union, and so our locals. So our local is 2801. Our local will do fill the boot, and then all those proceeds go to the national MDA, and so that's just our philanthropy that we do. I'm talking about as a nation's fire service is MDA. Right. That's our adopted philanthropy that we do. So that's what
they do. They stand out there with their little suspenders and their little boot, and they hold it out. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. We need to learn how.
Is there anything in your department that you would like to see in your department, like in your house, station, whatever you want to call it? That you guys don't have, like anything in the maybe a kitchen gadget or I don't know, something.
Oh,
what are your needs?
Our needs are really, nothing. It's just to, get out the door and go to work. No, we
spoken like somebody true service. Hello, think outside the box, sir. Let's go. Yeah, we could potentially have, once I put this on our Roku channel, could potentially have over 100 million people watching this and say that you went out to a call and now they want to give back to your station. What do you need?
I know it. Being a good Catholic person I am, I want anybody who sees this to say a prayer for not only Suffolk Fire, but for everybody out there in police and military, that they return home safely to that would be the best. That's what we need. The fire service, police, military just needs a prayer and support from the community. That's it.
Covering. Yeah. I love that. That's amazing.
That's it. And if I get 100 million of those, then that's a good thing. So
yeah, you guys definitely cared for. Got an armor of God right there. Wow. That's awesome.
Wall of fire of protection around our fire.
Pray for the people who go out the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. See,
anything else you'd like to add at the end here? So, because I know that you're waiting on your thunderstorms and you don't know if you're going to have power. So I don't want to keep you too long, even though I'd love to.
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you for, we don't have an opportunity to get our message out a lot. And this is, the journey in boots, this is an opportunity to get our message and to meet, whether it's through people who are firefighters and military police, service members, teachers, or if it's not, it's on a Roku channel that are meeting people that we never have is just thank you. Just thank you for both of you all, for your ability to have this audience and certainly for your service, both of you. So thank you.
See, and you weren't at 9/11, so listening to Bill's story was pretty interesting for you, right? So you wouldn't have had that opportunity to hear that play-by-play without having this type of, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these messages out there from trauma to triumph, basically, not necessarily your trauma, but definitely how you rose through all of your challenges that you've had. You said right at the beginning, I don't want to talk about me, but a little bit about you, because that's important. People want to know, like, how did you become chief of all things? You could have went 800,000 different ways, as smart as you are and your education level. I mean, you have a graduate degree. You didn't necessarily need to go down this road. So that's kind of why I wanted to share the details of your journey with everybody else. Plus, you grew up in a service household. Like, really, you didn't have a choice?
Mother was a nurse, father was a physician. That's basically, yeah.
And he likes the Air Force people, which I appreciate.
In Air Force. Yeah. My dad wanted to fly B-52s. That was his whole goal until he had to get glasses. And
that'll do it.
Yep. And so he went from wanting to fly B-52s to being a physician, which is, again, service. We all serve, we all give. And that's what makes our, community thrive, our country thrive. And I'm blessed. I'm blessed every day to come work in a fire department and run a great fire department. And I don't know how I got here, but I know the journey was fantastic. And I've lasted 5 years. I'll be 6 years in October as a fire chief. And the average fire chief lasts 3 to 5 years. So I've made that. A quick story is I say being a fire chief is like dog years. And I'll tell you this. So a new puppy, if you're a new fire chief and you're a new puppy, it's very similar. Is you look at shiny objects, you get whatever you want. You're allowed to jump on the furniture. If you want a new ladder truck, the council will support it. You want a new 5 firefighters will give it to you. But after 3 years of being a new fire chief, you're like a dog that's 3 years old. You can't get on the furniture anymore. If you have an accident, they throw you out back. If you eat, somebody's food and all that, they punch you in the nose. And then the problem that I have is at age 7 to 8, when a dog becomes incontinent or a dog, can't make it outside, what happens? They put the dog down. So right now, in about 2 years, I'll be that 7-year-old fire chief where they're going to either put me down or I might get another 2 years. But service is like that because, when you're running, a $44 million budget, 318 people, you're 20,000 calls a year in your fire department, and you're serving at that capacity is at about 7 years. It's time for me to turn it over. It's time to give it to the next chief. Let somebody else take their ideas and run with it. Let them get the new shiny objects. Let them jump up and down from the furniture and be, petted and loved on. And then they can turn it over to somebody 5 years after that. So service will wear on you. And that's one thing you need to respect is that when you serve, sometime it might be better to go ahead and either take your retirement or find something else and then enjoy that time before we end up not being able to get out of bed anymore.
Right. Absolutely.
So what would you think you would do if you weren't a chief?
Ooh.
My goal is when I retire is go work. I've been part-time with CHKD since 2000, so 24, almost 25 years. My goal is to go work there full-time until my kids get off my insurance program. I need full-time insurance. But so my next chapter will be full-time at the hospital.
He's going to be a golf pro. We already know. It's the only place you can drink and drive. Like, it's a thing.
Well, then you should come down here to Canada August 3rd for all golf tournament. It's in honor of my dad who passed away of cancer 3 years ago. So we are inviting everybody to come in, and the proceeds go to a local family in need that needs help with their cancer bills. So we'd love to have you.
I come up to Detroit, go over the bridge, and be right
She'll
there.
do you one better. We fly into Detroit when we come, and she comes gets us. So well, yeah.
As long as the blockades not going on, we can get across the bridge.
He's totally done. You can tell. He just knows what's going on. I didn't know.
Well, for all my American friends that are driving themselves, yes, you have to stop at the border and actually stop at the stop sign, because the border guard will get your ass streamed out. Let's just say that. Happened to a friend of mine. I won't say which one. And she was like, I don't know if I want to come into Canada after that. I'm like, you didn't obey the law as soon as you come into our country. So do you think they want you in here if you're not going to obey right at customs? Hello.
Nope. That's why you're driving. I don't have to worry about it.
Anyways, that was just a caveat for my American.
Good plug. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was great. All right. Well, Chief, stay back. Thank you so much for your hour and 19 minutes. We got of you, which is amazing. Thank you so much. We appreciate your years and years of service. You can find the book.
Go get your copy.
Go get your copy. It's amazing. It's got some pretty epic stories in it. Kyle Wilson's story definitely made me cry. Doesn't happen very often, but it did pull it all of my heartstrings. Very, very good book. Lots of goodies in leadership and decision making. And yeah, you definitely can. There's lots of takeaways in that book. It's worth it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Absolutely. Go get your copy today. Thank you so much for everybody that has been listening in, and for those of you that are going to watch the replay. And thank you again, Chief, for joining us here. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you. And don't forget, guys, join us again next week. Same time, same channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and go check us out on Roku. We are there. And good evening, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.